Welcome back. Dr. Kim, before the break we were talking about some of the natural remedies that you're here to talk to us about, but I think before we get into that, what exactly is hypertension?
High blood pressure, basically. But every living organism has its ability to maintain or restore its balances. So our body has an inherent ability to restore balance. If blood pressure goes too high, it brings it down.
Regulates
it goes down, it brings it
up.
up.
Right.
But for hypertensive patients, they lost this ability. That's why they're in trouble.
So their body cannot regulate the pressure.
And then at first it progresses very slowly, then it speeds up.
Right. And so before the break, when we were talking about the prescription drugs, and we were getting into some of the side effects.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And some of the things you were saying is that there's a really quite a short-term relief from these pharmaceutical drugs.
That's correct. Only temporary relief.
Right.
In exchange for permanent dependence.
Right. That was the point I wanted to make. Sounds like there's dependency on these drugs. The body becomes dependent.
Body's ability, inherent ability,
right,
to restore its own balance becomes weaker and weaker.
Right.
So they depend upon these chemicals. For example, I mentioned that there is a certain chemical the body releases to relaxes its blood vessels. And then if we use these hypertensive drugs to relax these blood vessels, and body takes it as a signal that
it doesn't need to do it.
Yeah, so that part of the function is become lazy, and at some point it stops functioning.
Right.
Then that person has to take that drug permanently.
Right. So would it be true to say then that just more and more drugs are required to do the same thing?
Yeah. So more dosages.
Right.
And then even more varieties.
Right.
So that's the fate of this hypertensive patients who begin to use these drugs.
And so on the other hand, when we talk about natural remedies, how are those working on hypertension?
That's the beauty of this natural treatment. Natural treatment is not only good for this symptom treatment, but it restores the body's own ability. So it's the opposite of these chemical drugs.
Right.
So if you choose this natural treatment correctly, the body's own ability to restore its balance, which you call homeostasis.
Homeostasis, right.
Yeah. So it's restored. That's the beauty of this natural treatment.
And it sounds too, like just on the topic of natural remedies, that it sounds like Western medicine is more open and accepting of this now.
Before, up until 10 years ago, herbal medicine was treated like superstition.
Right.
But now, after lots of researches are done, now established medical circle also accept it.
So let's talk about some of the natural remedies that you're here to share with us. Where do you want to start?
Let me first share with you what is called LBM treatment.
LBM treatment.
Yeah, it used to be the Indian treatment, but it became very popular in Tibet. And then about 30 years ago, it was taken up by Chinese scientists. These days, Western scientists also joined the bandwagon. And then LBM treatment is herbal treatment.
Right.
Very safe. It is known to cleanse the blood vessel. So it helps the...
So it cleans like cholesterol?
Yeah, it is helpful for arteriosclerosis patients.
Which is the hardening of arteries.
Yeah, and then it is also known to stop the aging process too. It's a beautiful treatment.
Stopping the aging process. That's something I want to hear more about.
And then these days the Western scientists succeeded in isolating the active ingredients they identified the active ingredients of this LBM formula, which is quercetin. And then so they are starting the synthesizing these active ingredients chemically.
So they're interested in it.
Yeah, but I prefer the natural form rather than synthesized chemical form. Yeah.
Right, that makes sense. And so what would be another method, natural method of treating hypertension?
I'd like to mention P700 hypertension formula.
So P700.
Yeah, and it was originally developed as a diabetes treatment by a Canadian university. But they found out that it not only reverses diabetes, but it also reverses hypertension.
So it works with both diseases.
Yeah. So they applied this knowledge to develop the hypertension formula per se.
Right.
So it's called P700
Right.
hypertension formula.
Right.
That's also very safe, very effective, and then it's a very well-known formula.
So how many people would be taking
It is
something like
known that
P700?
50,000 people.
So that's quite high numbers.
And that is well accepted by the experts by many countries.
Wow,
Yeah.
that sounds really exciting. So are there any other natural formulas?
DASH is what I'd like to mention. DASH.
DASH.
Diet approach to stop hypertension.
Diet approach to stop hypertension.
DASH.
Right,
It's
so
called.
that's the
It's
acronym.
very famous. It is invented by Dr. Morse, who is a very prominent scientist, and then by 4 other medical doctors. In the beginning, nobody really believed their claims because they all thought that these claims are outrageous.
So what are the claims?
Within 14 days, without drugs, people become normal.
So 14 days, hypertension gone.
Yeah, without drugs.
How?
Basically by means of taking more high fiber,
Right.
and then more vegetables. But it's
So
amazing.
Is it substantiated?
Yeah, it not only substantiated these days, even American Heart Association
Which is a very credible organization.
officially endorses this treatment.
Wow.
And then National Institute of Health, NIH, financially supports this study.
So they believe in it.
And then New England Journal of Medicine carries not only one article, but a series of articles
On this.
on this treatment. So it became an established fact.
So that sounds really positive.
That's so. For hypertension, there are many news that brings us hope here.
Absolutely. That sounds like it. And by the way, what are the causes of hypertension?
There are many, not only one. Of course, the genes play some role. And then ethnic variations play some role too. For example, Afro-American male have such a higher incidence than the rest of the population.
Interesting.
Yeah, but the
Gender play a role at all?
Yeah, the before menopause, women seldom have hypertension.
Interesting.
Yeah, but the after menopause,
Post-menopause.
yeah, they virtually become the same.
Equal.
Yeah.
Right.
And then most important factor is lifestyle, such as eating habit.
Right.
And
Not enough vegetables, not enough fruit.
and lack of exercise.
Right. So our Western diet contributes.
Yeah, it's a Western lifestyle.
It's interesting, Dr. Kim, as you describe those causes of hypertension, because it sounds an awful lot like diabetes.
That's correct. Actually, these two diseases are so closely related. Some people say these two diseases come from the same root.
So diabetes and hypertension are that
Let
connected?
me give you a few statistics.
Yeah, that would be great.
75% of diabetic patients have hypertension.
Wow, that's high.
Yeah. And then 70% of diabetic patients eventually die of coronary diseases such as stroke and heart failure, which are direct consequences of hypertension.
Wow.
And then so people say it is inevitable for diabetic patients to become hypertensive, and vice versa.
And
It is inevitable for hypertensive patients
to become diabetic.
Yeah. So these are two most deadly combination of diseases.
Absolutely. And Dr. Kim, do you remember in the other section of the show where you were talking about the side effects of the prescription drugs? One of the side effects was that it would actually cause or worsen diabetes from the drugs.
Yeah. For example, the diuretics. It removes the not only the potassium, which is a very important nutrient, but also it triggers the insulin resistance, which is the cause of this diabetes, right? And then another thing is that once you have an insulin resistance, it hardens the artery. And then also it makes the kidney more sensitive to sodium.
Right.
So it becomes more and more difficult to handle the sodium.
It sounds like a vicious cycle.
It just intensifies each other.
Right, right.
So the treatment of hypertension
Yeah.
worsens and aggravates the diabetes.
Right. When you say the treatment, you're talking about the prescription drug treatment.
Yeah, and especially diuretics and beta blockers are infamous for aggravating this diabetes.
It's incredible.
But many doctors are quite unfortunately are not paying too much.
Not understanding that correlation.
So because these are relatively recent discoveries.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, so Dr. Kim, then how would you recommend treating if there's such a close correlation between hypertension and diabetes?
Yeah. What I find, in Western medicine is that they tend to paying too much attention on symptoms only.
Right, treat the symptoms. That's very common,
So
isn't it?
when people have hypertension, they tend to look at the symptoms of hypertension only, without looking at a deep relationship between hypertension and diabetes.
Right.
But in the Orient, the well-established tradition is they look at both hypertension and diabetes. So the treatment of diabetes takes precedence over the symptomatic treatment of hypertension. But they look at the symptoms too, but the main emphasis on the treatment is fundamental treatment of diabetes rather than symptomatic treatment of hypertension.
So treat the diabetes, and in the process, your hypertension is going to be positively impacted as well.
Yeah, so it is a very well-known fact that if diabetes is under control, hypertension is under control too.
So they are really closely correlated.
They're very closely correlated.
So Dr. Kim, before we go to a break, just want to check one more thing out with you. So sugar and its relationship to diabetes, salt and its relationship to hypertension. We have a lot of both of those in our North American diet. Can you comment on that?
They are both white powders, right?
Absolutely.
Do you also know that in ice cream there's quite a bit of salt?
No, I wouldn't think it. It's so
actually,
sweet.
salt in ice cream makes ice cream sweeter because it prevents so-called crystallization of sugar.
Right.
Yeah. But actually, you must have noticed that in fast food chains, they make hamburgers and French fries very salty to increase the craving of soft drinks.
So you're saying that the foods that are extremely salty, in particular in fast food, is going to increase my craving for something sweet.
Yeah, and then vice versa, very sweet food.
So I'm a sweet soft drink now, and I want more fries.
For
is
example,
that kind of how it works?
Yeah, ice cream, those kind of sweet food increases the cravings of salty food. So they intensify each other.
So this is fascinating.
That's what's
Again, there's another correlation here.
That's behind this so-called supersize syndrome.
Supersize syndrome.
Do you know that the one serving of the fast food chain is like 2 to 3 times larger than before?
Unbelievable. Well, the hamburgers look bigger to me.
And then without this mutual intensifying of salty food and sweet food, you cannot eat that much.
So by adding sugar and salt to the foods, we're eating more.
So that's behind this overeating syndrome.
And how does advertising factor into all of this?
They spend billions of dollars of advertisement. For example, in North America, an ordinary child is exposed to 40,000 times of advertising. Basically, it says, eat more, eat more, eat more.
That's incredible.
And then before the age of 10 or 11, they cannot distinguish the program from advertising.
So they don't even know they're being hit with an advertisement.
They think of this as teachers saying, you should eat this.
Unbelievable.
So
the rise in childhood obesity, childhood diabetes, all these sound like they're offshoots of what you're just describing.
That's correct. So, and then that's why people begin to mention conspiracy. And then, so with the bombardment of salty food, sweet food, and supersizing, and they cause this hypertension, obesity, diabetes. And then they toss these patients to the pharmaceutical industry, and saying to them, you have to be on this drug forever. Some of them are even the same shareholders.
So that's incredible. I mean, that's definitely something to ponder. So let's pause on that note, take a short break, and when we come back, let's look at some more information on these positive natural remedies for hypertension.
Let's do that.